Over the lifetime of Blizzard's existence, we had a lot of famous and infamous developers spread across the entire company. Some were loved by fans and their player base, and some others were seen as the villains of the company. Today we're diving into the people behind WoW's legacy, the legends, the heroes, and the villains that went down with controversies that ruined their entire career and future. Starting off with probably the most known one, J. Allen Brack, who dug his own grave with one little sentence. Brack began working on online games in 1999 as a producer for Star Wars Galaxies, way before joining Blizzard in 2005.
So what can we expect for the Lich King expansion?
We get a lot of neat ideas and neat features for the next expansion. Obviously, the biggest one is going to be the introduction of our first hero class, the Death Knight.
He worked his way up over the course of his time at Blizzard, and in 2014 he eventually got promoted to executive producer and vice president of World of Warcraft. On October 2018, Blizzard announced him as the new president of Blizzard Entertainment.
So how has the transition been coming from World of Warcraft executive producer to now president of the whole shebangle?
Yeah. I think the biggest thing has got to be the amount of time I get to spend with all of the different products and all of the different people. Before I was laser focused on WoW, World of Warcraft, next expansions, what we were going to do, and now it's the entire breadth of all the products that we're working on. So it's exciting.
So if his career path looks so promising, why is he one of the most disliked Blizzard developers to ever exist? Well, it all really began more than a decade ago by now, where he famously dismissed classic fans with one single line.
Have you ever thought about adding servers for previous expansions as they were then?
No. And by the way, you don't want to do that either. You think you do, but you don't.
Everyone critiqued him for his arrogance and ignorance towards vanilla fans. Although he got proven wrong many years later in 2019, when Classic WoW delivered Blizzard Entertainment new record highs in subscription numbers, Brack was still under the spotlight. He never spoke about the situation again and got tangled in even more drama a few months later, with the Blitzchung incident in 2019.
你就讲完那8个字，然后打波我们就结束，我们就什么也都不要聊了，然后你随时可以开始，头先低下来。
光复香港，时代革命。
For anyone who missed it, the Blitzchung controversy was a movement by a player known as Blitzchung, who openly voiced the support of the Hong Kong protests during an official Hearthstone tournament. Blizzard reacted by immediately suspending him for a whole year and stripping him of his prize money. They also fired the casters who were on the stream with him at the time for not reacting appropriately. Fans saw the company's actions as silencing free speech and putting profit before principle. This led to the hashtag boycott Blizzard trending worldwide, and all eyes eventually fell on the company's president, J. Allen Brack. People saw him as a weak corporate face. Later on, Brack apologized for Blizzard's way of handling things during the controversy and eventually stepped down from his position as president after Blizzard was sued for creating a frat boy culture that allowed gender-based discrimination and sexual harassment.
When I think about what I'm most unhappy about, there's really two things. The first one is we didn't live up to the high standards that we really set for ourselves. And the second is we failed in our purpose. And for that, I am sorry, and I accept accountability.
After his departure with Blizzard, he founded a new gaming company, Magic Soup Games, with former colleagues Jen O'Neill and John Donham. They haven't really announced anything since the creation of the company, but mentioned in their LinkedIn that they are currently at work on an unannounced game and are still in the process of filling out an experienced startup team. But while J. Allen Brack was being hated for these reasons, Chris Metzen was one of the most beloved faces of WoW and Blizzard alike. Chris began his career in Blizzard Entertainment as an artist in 1994, at the young age of 19. Initially, he got hired to work on a title called Justice League Task Force, a competitive fighting game for the Genesis and SNES in 1995. He later on began working on Warcraft Orcs and Humans and continued all throughout StarCraft, the Diablo series, and also World of Warcraft. His work proved Blizzard his skills as a storyteller, which led him to eventually becoming the senior vice president of story and franchise development at Blizzard Entertainment, and assisted the company's projects by providing voice talent for a number of characters, most notably the World of Warcraft character Thrall, as well as contributing to the artistic character designs. He was, as you can tell, doing a lot for the company, which is why he gained so much respect from the fans and colleagues alike. Metzen was always seen as a charismatic, passionate embodiment of Blizzard's soul during the golden ages. His storytelling shaped all the big titles of Blizzard, which turned him into the face of the company. Whenever fans approached him, he listened to what they had to say and considered their ideas in the future development of their games and expansions.
The southernmost points of the Eastern Kingdoms, Kalimdor and Pandaria, are all either jungle or desert, which almost suggests we're at the equator. So does that mean there's a whole southern hemisphere of Azeroth left to explore in the future?
No, it's a very astute observation. It's crazy. Actually, we actually have argued about this in the studio. And it's, boy, we went back and forth. Because it does look like it's all temperate, you know, kind of down there. So I think it's totally possible that there's more stuff down there. If these guys would quit doing globes with art inside of, was it Ulduar? Well, you can't put globes with continents. It's going to look like that's all there is. And you go, no, it's going to look cool.
He was never lying to the people, and if he was ever unsure about something or simply didn't know, he would admit that, which gave the players safety and security that their favorite game is in good hands.
But why are there 2 Hakars in Warcraft lore?
Did Richard Knack ask you to ask that? Did he roll me on that? Damn it. I'll roll that out. I'll let the guys off the hook. The answer is, my bad.
Eventually, in 2016, he decided to part ways with the company after nearly 23 years with them to focus on his family and to address burnout and severe anxiety. But luckily enough, he was able to recover and take time for himself and his family and decided to return to the company in 2022 as a creative advisor for the Warcraft franchise. His focus at Blizzard is now planned to expand to other properties in the future as well, which is why in 2023 he was promoted to a full-time role as Executive Creative Director of the Warcraft universe, focused on helping the leadership of the WoW team and shape the future stories that will be told over the next few years. While Metzen made a very anticipated return to the company, Mark Kern left the company without ever looking back. Mark Edward Kern, also known as Grums, joined Blizzard in 1997 and served as an associate producer for StarCraft. His roles expanded to include producer of StarCraft 64, producer of Diablo 2, and team lead for World of Warcraft. His career at Blizzard ended rather quickly though, with him leaving in 2005, shortly after WoW's initial release, and becoming the co-founder of Red 5 Studios. The reason why he left is that Mark Kern was always very confident and protective of his work at Blizzard, and often framed himself as the sole driving force behind WoW's creation and success. Many ex-Blizzard devs and fans feel like he exaggerated his role, overshadowing the dozens of other people who built the game with him. The game he created in Red 5 Studios, Firefall, in fact, was a miserable try of recreating the WoW killer to prove them all wrong, and after burning through millions of dollars and constantly rebooting the design, it ultimately failed. Many people, including ex-Red 5 studio employees, point to his leadership as a big reason for the disaster, seeing it as proof he was never the genius he claimed to be. But not only is he unbearable for his colleagues, he's also known to post hot takes about gaming, politics and culture on his Twitter account Grums. Many of his posts are polarizing and confrontational, earning him a reputation as an attention seeker and drama magnet. Some accuse him of stirring outrage just to stay somewhat relevant, and as many of you may know, he made himself the face of the Nostalrius petition in 2016.
As you may have heard, Nostalrius, the fan server you shut down, has a petition calling for legacy servers for World of Warcraft. I've got it right here. Over 230,000 signatures and thousands of comments, nearly 10,000 pages in all. I've printed it all out because I thought it might be more tangible this way to see in physical form.
And personally delivered 200,000 signatures to Blizzard, once again plastering his face all over the whole classic thing. Many fans agreed that he was hijacking the movement for clout rather than doing it selflessly, which, looking at his track record, might actually be very true. Moving on from someone who left really early to someone who's working at the company to this day. Before joining Blizzard before the Wrath release, he was working as a full-time lawyer and part-time raider for the hardcore raiding guild named Elitist Jerks. He was never a casual player to begin with and was always pushing world-first progression, writing deep analysis posts and living the game like the sweatiest of players. Which is why fans respected the fact that he knows what it's like to be on their side of the keyboard. I am obviously talking about Ian Hazzikostas. Blizzard noticed him because of his theory crafting posts on the forum and was arguably better than some inside devs, which is why he eventually got hired as an encounter designer in 2008. He continued to work on some of WoW's most beloved raids and bosses, like Ulduar, ICC and the Trial of the Crusader. Well, maybe not the last one, but even players who criticized WoW's systems still praise his boss mechanics as top-tier MMO design. This gave him a reputation as a craftsman. During Cataclysm, he transferred to the class design department and was in charge of balancing specs like Frost and Unholy Decays. Later on, he applied for the position of Chief Dungeon Design in Mist of Pandaria and released a banger raid like Throne of Thunder. His connection to the player and fan base was something that was never seen before in a WoW developer. Ian regularly does Q&A sessions, interviews and BlizzCon panels. He takes the tough questions head on and doesn't shy away from unhappy fans. Fans like that he doesn't vanish when things get rough and listens to those who wants to criticize their game. In late 2016, he got promoted to game director, and ever since he was the face of WoW.
At the end of Legion, so like there's a cinematic and Sargeras, as you know, stabbed the earth with a sword, and it's been there for quite a while, and I'm not really sure like where are things going with that.
Wait, what? What sword?
He still shows up to interviews and BlizzCon panels and does Q&A sessions mainly in live streams, which once again enforces his reputation of taking tough questions head on. Ian tries his best to represent himself and his role as a professional as much as possible, while still trying to understand players' concerns. But unfortunately, the same could not be said about the next ex-Blizzard employee I'm going to talk about. Steve Denuser, also known as Morgard, is a rather lesser known name for the community when it comes to Blizzard devs. He is so undercover in fact that I couldn't find anything about him online. Nonetheless, Steve joined the Sony Online Entertainment in 2003 as the community manager for EverQuest 2, creating one of the strongest and most vibrant communities in the MMO space to this day. At SOE, he eventually also became a game designer on EverQuest and contributed to the original game as well as many expansions that followed over the years. He mainly worked at Sony up until May of 2015, where he joined Blizzard as a senior game designer on World of Warcraft and eventually the lead narrative director. He designed a lot of game mechanics that we know and love to this day, and although he had many good ideas over the years, he was the main cause of one pretty big mistake: Shadowlands. Steve Denuser was the story architect for the entire expansion, and as you all might remember, the story wasn't Shadowlands' strong suit. Honestly, nothing was Shadowlands' strong suit, but Steve Denuser still got all the hate. Whether the hate threats online were deserved or not, he eventually left the company in 2023 to join Epic Games as a narrative director. Some WoW fans speculate that he might have been fired, and some say that he must have left willingly after realizing that he destroyed his reputation in the World of Warcraft community. But what do you think? There obviously can't be a most loved list without one specific person in it. One of 3 core members of Blizzard Entertainment, and why we play this game after all these years without regretting a single second. Michael Morhaime is a co-founder of Blizzard Entertainment, along with his partners Frank Pierce and Alan Adam. His role was being the strategic advisor for the team, and even was the president/CEO of the company up until 2018, where he announced that he would step down as CEO, but still remain as an advisor to the company until he left Blizzard permanently in 2019 to work on his new company, Dreamhaven. Mike was always known as the humble and supported Blizzard dad. He was never loud, but rather earned respect as a steady, fair leader. The reason why he was so loved by the community is because he has always been associated with Blizzard's golden age of creative freedom and quality.
We thought that EverQuest was a really deep game, but they had an assumption that this type of game would only appeal to hardcore RPG players, and they crafted the game with that assumption in mind, I think. And we felt that if we applied the same kind of design philosophies that we had applied to our previous games, easy to learn, difficult to master, but really try to make a shallow learning curve so anybody should be able to sit down and figure out how to play, that we might be able to open up the genre to a much larger audience.
He was always the guy that cared about games first and money second. At BlizzCon, he would walk on stage and you could feel how much people loved him and how much he loved his fans and the passion to the game. Similar to Ian, Michael was also a gamer and therefore had the ability to provide good insight on future game design and ideas. He always fought for his independence and freedom. Even when Activision and Blizzard merged in 2008, he fought hard to keep it that way. He shielded the dev teams from corporate interference for years, letting them release an update when it's ready, which nowadays is very unheard of if you take a closer look at the games in the industry. The most disappointing thing I heard while doing my research is that fans often said that Blizzard started to lose its soul when Michael Morhaime left in 2018, which is also the time where the quality of the game dropped and things like store mounts, /transmogs, unfinished expansions, and a lot more negative aspects to the game gained traction. As I mentioned earlier, Mike is now working in his own company where he already released many games like Thunderfolk, Wildgate, and Link. So if you want to feel like your time is being respected again, go check out his stuff. Which Blizzard employee was your favorite/least favorite and why? Let me know down in the comments below. And while you're down there, consider liking this video and subscribing to my channel to never miss any of my future uploads again. If you want to support me even more and gain early access to my videos, become a channel member for only 99 cents. And YouTube recommends you to watch this video of mine next, so why not give it a try? I wish you guys a wonderful rest of the day, and I will see you in the next one.